At the risk of overkill, I'm going to give just one more anecdote on this subject of the unreliability of the wealth and status guideline as far as happiness goes. This is an anecdote from a book called Divided Lives, The Public and Private Struggles of Three American Women. The book is by Elsa Walsh, and it's about the struggles of professional women in particular. And it includes a story of a physician who did seem, at least in the beginning of the story, to have a rewarding and well-balanced life. She made a good salary, she had the respect of others in her field, and she took great pride in her work, the compassionate care that she was able to give her breast cancer patients. But then a position for chief of breast surgery opened up, and she applied. And it turned out that it was part of the politics of the hospital that one of the main ways a person was chosen to be the chief of breast surgery was to pick the person who brought in the most money. So to better herself, so to speak, this physician ended up doubling her fees, working 12-hour shifts, and seeing up to 40 patients a day. And because of this, she was constantly exhausted and felt that her nerves were frazzled, and she felt that the quality of her care was not as good as it used to be. And she even admitted that she wondered why she was pursuing something that was driving her crazy. She persisted nonetheless, and she ended up getting the position, but she also described this as a victory that was demoralizing. Now, why did she persist in pursuing something that, at least as far as I could tell from the story, made her less happy than she was before? My own slant on this story is that she had this American wealth and status guideline so deeply embedded in her that it was something she was following without questioning. Because judged by this wealth and status guideline, this more is better mindset, the pursuit of her promotion did make complete sense because her new position made her more money, it gave her more status. But when I read the story in terms of what it did for her happiness, she seemed much better off before this so-called promotion. Because when she was one of the regular staff surgeons, she was already making enough money to meet her needs. She wasn't stressed or anywhere as stressed or exhausted, and she felt much better about the care and attention that she could give her breast cancer patients. From what I could tell from the story, she sacrificed things that genuinely made her happy. Her personal health, feeling personal satisfaction at the job. And she traded those things for what seemed to me as excesses in wealth and status. And as far as I could tell, these things were not making her any happier. All right, now that I've talked at length about how jobs that are abundant, at least in terms of wealth and status, have no guarantee of bringing happiness, there's that other side of the coin, that if you're trying to support yourself with a job that pays very poorly, especially if you have children depending on you, that's almost guaranteed to come with a degree of suffering. Now, if we go back to this 4 dimensions chart, here we go. Hold on one second. All right, if you can't provide for your physical dimension here, that just can't help but affect all your other dimensions. Your emotional dimension, relation with people. Everything else gets affected too. Now I'm going to reiterate my earlier point that if you're an adult with lots of life experience, maybe all of this is already all too obvious to you. But again, the main audience member I had in mind when I wrote this book, that is Hunting, Gathering, Video Games, the main audience member was a younger version of myself, back when I was in my late teens and early 20s, and these things were not obvious to me. And they weren't obvious to a lot of my peers as far as I could tell. And from my experience with my own teenagers and their peers, I don't think these subjects are any more obvious to today's young people either. And the ignorance, at least in this particular area of young people, it does make sense for several reasons. Some of the reasons go back to the subjects I discussed during my videos when I discussed my book's first and second chapters. The way we're alienated from our labor and the way we're alienated from our money. Although the biggest reason for lack of knowledge in this area is probably just, well, when you're being supported by your parents or whoever else, you just don't know, you're just unaware of the volume of money it takes to support yourself independently, and especially to support a family. When you're blissfully ignorant of that side of life. It's easy to brush off money as something superficial, just paper, just electronic numbers. It's easy to be susceptible to that hippie mentality that says, well, money doesn't matter, man. Just follow your bliss, man. Do what you love. So my main point for my book's sixth and last chapter is to point out the flaws of the two extreme sides of advice that young people so often hear. That is, the flaws of the ultra-conservative approach that focuses too much on money, the approach that says money is everything, and the flaws of that opposite extreme, that hippie approach that says, that does acknowledge those other aspects of life, but doesn't pay enough attention to money, doesn't realize the role that money has in affecting the quality of your other dimensions, at least for people who are living independently, and especially if you're the one that other people are dependent upon. So I offer my 4 dimensions map as an alternative, something that can be used as a guideline to avoid both the hollowness of a life that's focused on nothing but pursuing wealth and status, and the miseries that come with jobs that leave you unable to support yourself and your family if you have one. So what I'm proposing is that peace within employment rests on having a job that adequately supplies that financial subsection of your physical dimension and contributes to, or at least doesn't overly interfere with, your pursuit of achieving a satisfying balance of your emotional, your mental, spiritual, and that health subsection of your physical dimension. Now, I use the phrase satisfying balance rather than fulfillment, because time constraints will just naturally put the dimensions of our lives in competition with each other. I mean, we just don't have all the time that we'd like for our families and for fitness and for earning our salaries. But this wealth and status map doesn't give consideration to much else besides wealth and status. The 4 dimensions map at least gives a fair hearing to all the compartments of our lives. So as for that big question, what do you want to be when you grow up? With the implication being that your job title is your identity. I think the question might more appropriately be phrased, what type of paid employment do you think will best complement your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual dimensions? All right, this is actually the end of the video. I just want to add a closing note. Today is October 3rd, 2008, and I do have several more video series that I'd like to make for this channel, but I'm not sure when I'll get around to making them, and that's because I just finished the 2008 revision of my other book, Dialogue with a Christian Proselytizer. So for the rest of the year, most of my video making attention will be focused on discussing the ideas in that book, and that will be on my other author channel, the one that's just called Todd Allen Gates, the one without the 2 at the end. For those of you not familiar with my Dialogue with a Christian Proselytizer book, it's a Socratic dialogue between a Christian apologist and a skeptic. And the apologist is handing out pamphlets on Judgment Day, warning people that they have to accept Jesus Christ as their Savior to avoid eternal hellfire. And the skeptic acknowledges that an eternity in hell is definitely something best avoided. But what he wants to know is why the Christian thinks that's going to happen, why the Christian thinks his knowledge of the divine is accurate. All right, so I'll be back on this channel probably sometime in 2009, and thanks for watching.